Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and as always, it's great to have you here with us today. And whether you're watching on YouTube or listening as you walk the dog or driving the car or running on the treadmill or whatever it is you're doing, I just want to start by saying thank you for being a listener. Now, our podcast is growing and we need your help to continue growing because we want to get to help as many people as possible. So if you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. Or if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, then give us a 5-star review and a follow, and that would be very kind of you and much appreciated. So with all that said, on with today's episode. Now, I'm very privileged in that I get to work closely with salon owners in many different countries, and at present I have one-to-one coaching clients in the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Panama, and even Morocco, which is a first. Now, today's guest is a Sydney-based salon owner and colorist, Kirby Lago, and I've had the pleasure of watching her grow her business from a small space to a business that's now at least 5 times the size it was. She's a great example of combining the life of being a very active behind-the-chair hairdresser with being a true business visionary and being prepared to put in the work and the personal sacrifices that go with it. So in today's podcast, we're going to discuss how the modern salon of today is evolving its service offering, how Kirby uses Instagram to grow her business, and finding balance between family life and running a business, and the story behind the evolution of her brand, and so much more. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Kirby.
Thank you, Anthony. I've been looking forward to this podcast. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have this opportunity to talk to you. I've witnessed your journey from afar for a while, and it's perfect timing now to talk about the next stage of your career. So I wanted to start off by talking about how you see the way that the modern salon of today is evolving, because you've just completed this brand new salon build out and it's beautiful. You've created a really beautiful space. So if we start talking about the salon design context, first of all,
Sure.
just tell us what your thoughts are about salon design today and what it was that you set out to achieve.
Yeah, sure. So I think it plays a huge part now. Like, people are very motivated to go to salons that have a bigger brand and I guess a little bit more status in the hair world now. And for me, it was building a space of luxury, and to offer a luxury service, I needed a luxury space. And I'm all about time is money, and so my audience or my clientele is a clientele that are wanting luxury and are willing to spend the money for luxury. And I felt like I wouldn't be able to achieve that without providing a space that met that expectation. So, and that has come from the design, the feeling, the artworks, the space, the size of the space, the lighting, like all the little details that really kind of bring that luxury element to the space.
I am going to suggest, and we'll put your Instagram handles in the show notes for today, and I'm going to suggest to all the listeners that they check out the reels in the highlight section of your Instagram so that they get a complete salon tour, because obviously you need to see it to
Totally.
understand what it is we're talking about, because you've really paid so much attention to detail. Do you know what my favorite bit was when I looked at those reels, and it was only on there for a second? It was your water jugs and your water, the glasses that you give clients. And it's that sort of attention to detail which really stands out. I mean, I'm not teasing you, and you know that you won't. I know that you won't mind me saying this, but for our audience that are watching this on YouTube, it's no coincidence that Kirby has a white microphone. She has gone to a lot of trouble to make sure she has a white microphone, because she is the master of detail, and she's the master of branding, and everything is so well thought through. It's very, very purposeful and very well executed. So what I want to ask you about with that is that in terms of the salon design, there's lots of sort of influences in it that I've heard you talk about already.
Yeah.
And I want you to sort of expand on that a bit, because I've heard you talk about it. You wanted it to have a Mediterranean vibe. And I
Hmm.
know you've got this beautiful Venetian plaster
Yeah.
finish and the color palette and etc. that you've used.
I think that the most important part of the design was to invoke a feeling of relaxation. And to create that, what better place than creating a holiday destination of a European feel to it, in no way of a cheesy way, but in a really detailed textural way. Like every single surface of the salon is covered in Venetian plaster. Like everything is like oversized and grand, but there's space between things, and there's layers of detail without anything being too loud. There's a real sense of like indoor outdoor. We're talking about 260 square meters here of two levels. We've got a cabana and terrace area out the back. We've got big waiting areas, palm trees. Like it's definitely that kind of resort feeling. And yeah, I think all the finishes and all the look, it wasn't the cheapest thing I've ever done in my life. But I think it definitely paid off. I didn't just spend money on high branded designer items. I spent money on creating quality building, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And, I knew you before this salon, and the previous salon was a very small salon that you had,
Yes, 60
really
square
maxed
meters.
out the potential. Yeah. So that was a big leap to go from 60 square meters, which isn't
Yeah,
big, to, now a space over, two levels. So yeah, it was a big leap to do that.
yeah,
And you totally ignored any advice that I gave you, which was to do it slowly. You've done it and you've pulled it off and you've done it really well. And in hindsight, you were definitely right. So you've got to back yourself sometimes. And
yeah.
sometimes that'll work, sometimes it won't. But this has definitely worked for you. So let's talk about the salon side of the business. I see a lot of your stuff on Instagram, etc. And there's a lot of color. It's very,
Mhm.
color heavy in terms of the
Yeah,
work that you do.
yeah.
Is it primarily a color salon?
Yeah, so that was actually a conscious decision that I made from a profitability point of view.
Mm.
So when I look at the numbers, it makes more sense for us to be color focused. I personally am like a stylist, a cutter, a colorist, but I've seen when I look at the books for the days that are just blow dries compared to the days that are colors, and it just made more sense. Plus, it's just a passion of mine as well. Like the things that I've learned to do with color over the years of being a colorist for the last 21 years, there was a gap in the market for anyone focusing on luxury color. And what I mean by that is a high quality of technique that's happening when you're coloring to maintain the health of it. So, it ended up being something that we could focus and brand on, that was also a great business decision.
Mm. I often wonder, I mean, obviously, I'm a lot older than you. Hairdressing's changed a lot. When I was
Yeah.
your age, and I had a salon, I had a couple of salons in Sydney when I was your age, but hairdressing then was very much about the haircut.
Hmm.
And
And
it
I
was very
remember,
much,
I remember it being that as well. Like
yeah,
I know it was only 21 years ago, but when I started, it was that as well.
yeah. And it's now morphed away from that, because even if I look at your team, if I go your team or any team, I can go on any
Hmm.
salon's website and here's our team, and I'm going to look at all these gorgeous young women with long hair and color in their hair. So I was wondering about, so I'm not going to say the cut isn't as important anymore,
Hmm.
but for a certain generation it isn't, perhaps. And I was just wondering how much that had influenced your focus on the color side of the business, to because long hair, I mean, my wife's got long hair, my two daughters have got long hair, they simply don't need to be in the salon getting a haircut every 4 to 6 weeks.
No.
So
Yeah.
talk to us
Look,
about how that had shifted in your mind.
yeah, I think to be successful at anything, you need to move with the times. So if that is the thing that everybody is wanting, then that should be the area that you focus on. Unless you're
Mm,
talking about dominating the niche element, and that's another business strategy, which I get as well. But if I'm trying to get the larger percentage of what's happening in the industry right now, then that's where my focus goes, which is color. So, but I
Mm,
do believe cutting is definitely on the way back around again, and you're seeing people cut their hair shorter. And I
mm,
definitely think because of it not being as much of a focus, there's a lot of junior uh, hairdressers that aren't as educated in it as well.
mm.
Like when I did my apprenticeship, I did pixie cuts, I did crazy short fringes, I did like there was a lot of technical haircuts that you learned back then that people just aren't getting the floor practice on in
Yeah.
where I'm located, which I know might be different for overseas. But yeah, I think it's just going with the trends, going financially where it's more beneficial, and then being able to bring extensions and things like that into the coloring as well from a business perspective just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's not specific to you. That is the world of hairdressing at the moment. A lot of young
Yeah,
hairdressers don't cut short hair in any shape or form, don't have the confidence to
yeah,
because they simply don't do it. They don't do enough of it.
yeah,
That's, what it is. The other thing that I really wanted to dig into here, before we started recording, Melinda and yourself and me, we was having a conversation about the way that the hair and beauty space has
yeah,
evolved. And Melinda used that term. She said it's become very female led. And I thought, yeah, that
yes,
really describes what I see in your business because your business, okay, you're primarily a color salon, but obviously you do a lot of haircuts as well.
yeah,
But you've really expanded into another area. And
yeah,
that little brief conversation we were having before we were recording, I thought that was really important because I think
yeah.
that that's a very modern way of looking at what women want today. So give us your thoughts about that.
Okay, so I think it's different for every business, but for me, my brand is about like hair health, about longevity, about scalp health, and about a holistic approach to beautiful hair. And so I'll often give advice on, on supplements and, gut health being related to hair health. And we do a hair restoration room. So we actually provide a laser service to grow back thinning, balding hair, which is quite, I guess, unusual thing for a hairdresser to offer. But it was like for us, it was we saw a gap in the market where beauty people don't feel as confident working on a scalp. They don't feel comfortable parting hair and running a laser through it. They're more going to offer some skin rejuvenation to their client using a laser than they will offer something to do with their scalp. So there was a gap where that's a personal interest of mine. And I think it got to a point where there was a limit to how much I could help people by working on their external hair and by saying, hey, have this gut health antibiotic that I've come across that's meant to be helpful for that, not antibiotic, probiotic. And so it was like I wanted to do something that was more direct, that would create faster results, and that was the laser for me. So that was just a natural transition. I know I've shared with you other treatments that I would like to get into the salon, but for me, I've pulled back on some of those things because they're I think it's you've got to make sure that everything that you're doing in the salon is successful before you move on to the next thing. And I
Mhm.
feel like sometimes as an entrepreneur or as a creator, you can sometimes get distracted by the next thing. And so I
Mhm.
have tried to grow in a way where they're the right business decisions for me to do, and I can invest the right time into these areas, especially seeing that I'm owning everything in my building. Where if
Mhm.
it may be another salon that I've seen a lot of people do, they have beauty houses where they have injectors, they have skin, they have laser, they have all of those treatments under one room, but they're typically got contractors coming in and renting those spaces and providing those services, where I made the decision to do everything under my roof as my own business.
Right. Okay.
That makes
So
sense.
you
Yeah.
you do haircuts, you do colors, you do hair restoration. What would
Yes.
fall what falls under that category?
So hair restoration is a laser and LED service. So it's a
Right.
laser
Okay.
service that's combined with a hair serum
Yeah.
that goes directly into the scalp, into the follicle. And
Mhm.
then the LED also pairs as a anti-aging for the scalp. Our what we deliver to our clients is about long-lasting, healthy hair. And if we can
Mhm.
make the hair on the scalp like healthier that's coming out, then they're going to have longer, thicker, healthier hair long term. And, I often describe it to my clients, and why I focus so much on the scalp is there's an aging process that happens with the hair. If you think of your hair as a child and then you think of your hair as an elderly person, there is an aging process that happens over that time. And just like your skin, you can slow that aging process down. And we've even seen results where it's been reversed and gray pigment has come back to the hair because the hair follicle is healthier. So it is a new space, which sometimes it could be a disadvantage to be onto something at this new time in its beginning, early stages, because there's a big
Mm.
education piece around it when you're also trying to offer it as a service. So I feel like this will be something that's really common in a few years. So we're at that early
Mhm.
stage, but it just is a passion of mine to be going to the root cause, like going and fixing things really. I'm not a fluffer. I'm like all in when it comes to,
Mm.
everything that I do. So I just didn't feel satisfied with not having like a better solution to people having healthy hair than a
Right.
surface one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so, as well as that, you also do hair extensions.
So
You
we
don't. Right.
do
Okay.
keratin bond extensions, tape hair extensions. We do all colors, male cuts, upstyling, hair restoration, LED.
Yeah.
We've just launched the scalp spa as well.
Right. Okay. What's a scalp spa?
So it's the Japanese head spa. So it's the
Okay.
bed that we can do like the deep scalp treatments on.
Right. Okay. So, from a business point of view, what as a percentage, what is the sort of revenue split between how much of your revenue is coming from color and haircuts, how much of it's coming from extensions, or these other
Yeah.
services that you've got into? What
I
would
would
it be,
say
just roughly?
majority is still color. So I would say that we're like 80% color, or
Yeah.
70% color. Oh, there's a huge extension
Hmm.
clientele. So I would say, yeah, there's a big chunk of color, then extensions, and then the others are
Yeah.
smaller
Okay.
elements, which is also a reason why in spending my time building the team doing color, because I
Mm.
like to add these other things on that are great extras, but I don't want to get distracted by the things that are actually turning the wheels.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing, and you've just sort of touched on it a couple of times there, is that I've always admired the way that you build a team, and you're aware of the fact that where your strengths are and where you need to be, and there's only one of you. And although you're obviously very competent with social media yourself, you've got people that help you with the social media, with the marketing, with the salon management, etc. Tell us what are the positions that you have within your business that you've brought in those experts to work with you within the salon on a daily basis.
Yeah. So I would say the person that I work with the most is my social media marketing girl. So we work very closely together. I feel like I'm 40 hours on the floor still, plus I have 3 kids.
Mm.
And, I'm leading the team and doing all the other out of hour work things. So when you're building the brand and you're bringing new clients in, I feel like the social media is such a huge element that I could not do that by myself, like, because
Mm.
I'm still filming everything, right? So you've still got that
Mm.
whole element of filming, and then you've got the planning, and then you've got the editing, and writing the schedule of everything that's pumping out, and looking for new opportunities and forecasting, and all of that is such a huge part of
Yeah.
the modern salon. So
Yeah.
that's a big one. Obviously, I have worked with you over time, so you've been a great help because you combine that hair knowledge slash business knowledge. I've also worked with a financial coach over the time that was purely more numbers. It's somebody that is close by that can look at my books regularly and let
Mm.
me know what's happening and where things are shortfalling, or being able to predict and set goals. I've also had a personal coach, which is my longest standing coach. And that is someone I found through Tony Robbins. That was a really big one because it really put me into knowing what I really wanted, why I wanted it, and then creating a plan to get it. I actually didn't even realize. I wasn't even sure I wanted to open up a salon again. And, I did the work with this coach to figure out that that was what I needed to do to get the goals that I
Mm.
wanted in the life that I wanted. So that was a big one. I mean, I work with my accountant He's really good. I have a bookkeeper, and then I have a salon coordinator. So the salon
Yeah.
coordinator helps me with the like operations of the salon as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
What do you? It is a lot, and you've managed that growth really well. And a lot of people want to sort of grow their business and recognize that they don't have expertise in certain areas, but they're never sure at what time you bring someone else in, whether
As
it's a
soon as
salon
possible.
coordinator or a manager or whatever. So what
Yeah.
was the advice there? When would you
As
say the
soon as
timing was right?
possible was my
As soon as
advice.
possible.
And the
Yeah.
order that I did it was the personal coach is the most important. Because a personal
Mm,
coach, you could go all the way down the road of pathway, and if you haven't done the personal work to make sure that's the direction that's going to make you happy, then you've wasted your
mm.
time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
personally, I think the personal coach is the most important to get right back down to the bare things that make you happy and would give you
Yeah.
fulfillment and give you joy, and then work from that. Now, I actually had a social media girl with me when I was still freelancing because I
Mm,
knew the power of building a brand. I was a one person team and I had outsourced my social media because I knew,
mm.
one, I had a baby, and two, I knew that it was such an important role and such a big element of building something that it needed somebody that was dedicated to that role. So
Yeah.
I would also do social media as soon as possible. And then any self development that you can do from a business aspect is super important. So, I've been hairdressing since I was 14. I opened up my first salon when I was 19. And the businesswoman that I was when I opened up at 19 is very different to the businesswoman I am now. I would say
Mm,
I was a hairdresser that opened up a business. I had no knowledge of business whatsoever. And I have gone out and educated myself by going to business seminars. I've done lots of work with the Tony Robbins seminars, and I've done a lot of development over the years from a business aspect to teach myself in these areas. But there's also things that you need to outsource because they're not your jam. You need to
yeah.
know your numbers. You need to understand what someone's telling you. But if it's not something that you're going to do consistently because it doesn't bring you joy, then you need to outsource it, especially when it comes to growth. And I feel like not getting the help from a business perspective soon enough means that every week you're wasting growth that you could be doing. If you don't know where your numbers are at and you don't know targets of where your numbers want to be, you're wasting that time where you could be growing. So, from a business perspective, having a CFO or anyone that you can contract out to that can help you from a financial perspective of understanding your numbers and what that means as soon as you can do that. But if you're on a really, really small budget, you can start with your accountant because
Mm.
your accountant should offer a service where they can educate you with the bare minimums. Or you could do Anthony Whitaker's money courses, and that will also educate you on
Of
the numbers
course,
as
yeah.
well.
That's completely unprompted.
You didn't tell me to say that, I promise.
Yeah.
But there's
Okay.
education out there,
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
understanding that if you don't want to waste your time, then get the help from those areas as soon as you can.
Mm. Definitely. Okay. One thing that I also want to touch on, so change it up here a bit. We're going to come back
Go
and
for
talk
it.
more about Instagram later.
Mhm.
Is your salon culture?
Mhm.
Because as we've had conversations in the past, I know you're very clear, you're very strong on the culture that you want, and if
Mm.
people don't fit that, then it's see you later.
Yeah.
This is our culture. This is who we are. This is what we
Mm.
stand for.
Yeah.
And you've gone and created this very
Yes.
strong culture, and it's something that's important to
Yeah.
you. Um, so, what I want to ask you about is what's the advice you would give to a young salon owner about the
Yeah.
importance of creating that culture?
I think you need to set a standard or an expectation of what people are becoming a part of. And for
Mm,
me to do that, I created what I called a Pello Bible. So my salon's called Pello by Lago. And what that was it stated exactly who we are, what we stand for. And it also had details of values that we have. And I was very clear in that document that there was there was no bitchy behavior. There was no nonsense. Leave that rubbish at the door. We're, all here to have a beautiful environment that's creative and supportive around each other. I was very clear on that so that people knew what they were getting into. And I look at my salon as a second home. Like, we spend more time here than we do at home. And I don't ever want to step in this salon and not feel comfortable. And we've all been at salons where you feel like that. And I think sometimes, I'm going to probably shouldn't say this, but sometimes when you walk into I would assume like a freelance space, there can be a lot more like egos and tension, and the environment can be a little more stressful and intimidating. I really didn't want that space in this salon. I wanted it to be a team culture where everyone is a collective, and everyone feels comfortable and feels like they can be supported by everyone there.
Yeah, okay. Before I jumped on the call last week when I was sort of putting some notes together, I looked at your Google reviews,
Okay.
and the thing that comes up is well, there's all these positive comments, which are
Yeah.
amazing. But there's one word that came up again and again and again, and that was really positive comments about the experience that
Mm-hmm.
they had in the
Yeah.
salon. So they didn't just say great hair, I love my color.
Yeah.
The word experience
Yeah.
that they had in the salon, and
Yeah.
the level of service or friendliness that was there. Those things really jumped out to me as
Yeah.
being something that clients really noticed and really
Absolutely, they
enjoyed.
do.
So
Yeah.
yeah, just talk to us about that part.
Sure. So, I mean, this is another reason I personally chosen to have an employee only salon, was because I feel like you can have control over what the environment feels like, because everyone has a standard and expectations of the systems and things, little things that we all do consistently. That is the standard of the salon. So whether that comes with how we treat a client, how we walk them through, what drinks they have, the approach that we have to them, and the empathy that we have for them. So when we have team meetings, one thing that I'll always kind of bring up to the girls and remind them is looking at it from a client's perspective and what it feels like, and the expectation that they have, or the excitement that they have coming into the salon, and really honoring that with the service that we give them and making each of them feel special. So it's definitely been a focus of mine. I'm very aware, and I think all of us hairdressers are, we're very aware of people's energies. So I think that we can use that skill to be able to make them feel the best that we can while they're getting their hair done, and give them that full service.
Okay. Um, I think that you're inherently a very clever marketer. You understand
Thank you.
marketing at a very, without having studied it, you just sort of understand what
Yeah.
marketing is all about. And you market the business, and you understand how to connect and engage with your ideal client. Um, and I know you're not going to mind me saying this. If you did, I'll cut it out. Before we started recording, you said to me, "Can I just have a minute to reline my lips?" And I just laughed, because that is so you. You
I
understand
mean, it was
how
worth it.
important branding it was. Okay, you understand branding and marketing, and you're always on,
Yeah.
and image is everything. So
Yeah.
the question I want to ask after all that is,
Yes.
how much do you see yourself as the product, as the brand?
I'm 100% the brand.
Mm,
I live and breathe the
yeah,
brand. There's no
yeah,
coincidence that you always see me wearing the same colors, because people
mm,
associate you when they see you do the same thing on repeat all the time. And they like consistency. They like what they're coming to you for, and they know what they're going to get when they come to you. So I think that having a really strong brand, people know what they're coming to go to. They're not going to rock up at a restaurant and not know if they're going to get Japanese or Indian or Italian. You not want to know what you're going to get when you go somewhere, and that comes
mm,
to social media page. It's the same with your storefront. So yeah, I've definitely married the two together, and I feel like what I've learned over the years is people connect with people, and they want a face there, and they want someone to remember them and understand them and talk to them and be a real person. And so I've made that a very strong marriage between, yeah, myself and the brand.
Yeah, okay, and you do it really well. How would you describe your target market and the type of work that you want to be known for? You've sort of touched on that already, but
Yeah.
like who is the Palo by Lago client?
I think it's somebody that invests in themselves, that enjoys beautiful things, that enjoys an experience, that wants to feel good about themselves, that, yeah, invests in their physical appearance, but they also have a high standard when it comes to an experience.
Hmm, okay. Um,
But I would say
I think,
age-wise, if you wanna go into
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would say our age bracket is like, I mean, we definitely get some young 20s, but I would say our 25 to 40, like, it's pretty, yeah, around
Hmm.
there.
So it's you, really, isn't it? Like I mean that as a compliment. Like you are the target
Yeah,
market for your clients, and I don't
yeah,
just mean age. It's like you're a wife, you're a mum, you've got three gorgeous little girls. You are the target market for your brand, and so you live, breathe that image, and that's what you sell to the world. And you do it fantastically, heavily using Instagram, which is, I think you've done a brilliant job of. But
thank
I
you.
do want to dig into that
Thank
Instagram thing a bit more now,
Yes,
um,
sure.
and that is to say that I know it's a big part of your business. You do it
Yeah,
extremely well. I've heard you talk about Instagram before, and how it wasn't always easy for you. It wasn't always
yeah,
natural. And on
yeah,
Instagram, you come across very relatable to the target market. You're doing your makeup, you're doing your hair, you're talking about what you're going to wear. You've had this whole, like, I totally get how women your age would be watching you and listening to you and, taking in everything you're saying about how you do your makeup and how you do your hair and what you're going to wear and all that sort of stuff. It's very captivating and it's beautifully done and beautifully and tastefully put together.
thank
Um,
you.
Talk to me about that journey because I heard you say that at the beginning you were terrified of going on Instagram.
Yeah, I actually vividly remember my first time of filming from camera to face, and I remember I had my first influencer, Jay Green, in my salon, and I was filming her, and she was like, "We've got to get you in front of the camera. Like, you need to be in front of the camera." Because at that stage, all I was posting is all hair photos. Like, no one knew
Mm,
what I looked like if they didn't actually know who I was. So, and I was like, "Oh no." No thanks. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't even know how I would do that. And she was like, nah, that's it. We're doing it right now. And she physically made me do my first face to camera recording in the salon in front of her. There were other clients in the salon, and she just made me rip the band aid off and do it. And it was
mm,
probably the worst video I've ever done in my life. But
mm.
at least I ripped that band aid off. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's something that I've definitely got more comfortable with as time has gone on. I think that I've just tried to do the research and figure out what people really want, and they want authenticity. And so I try to not overthink it. And I try to just be as natural as possible. For me, there's a fine line between doing too natural, like where it loses the brand and the luxury. So I really try to find that line of a luxury brand, but being authentic and relatable as well. So they are my
Mm,
two things that I'm thinking about when I'm putting filming content and working with my social girl to like figure out what kind of videos that we want to do and what we want to post. Obviously, my stories are a lot more natural and less overthought. But yeah, everything that we put out is has got a bit more of a purpose behind it now and a lot of planning. But it was definitely a journey. I'm talking like 8 years of getting to filming in front of the camera to where I'm at now and how comfortable I am.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. We were both speaking at an event, a Goldwell event in
Yes.
Thailand. It was about this time last year or something, I think, maybe a little bit later, towards the end of last year. And I heard you talking at that event about Instagram,
Yes.
and you were talking about the three pillars
Yes.
in your Instagram that you focus on. And I was
Yeah.
really intrigued by that. So do you want to speak to us about the three pillars that you focus on with your Instagram?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's always important to figure out exactly the message that you're going to be putting out there. And once again, when people come to your page, they know what they're going to see. So we try to divide my Instagram into photos of hair, into like an education piece, and then into like a personal piece. So there's always that rotation between those three elements. But there, even though you're getting variety, you're also getting three streams of a certain type of video that's going out. So yeah, we always make sure that we're kind of dividing into those elements.
Mm. Okay. So how far ahead are you mapping that out? The content for Instagram.
2 weeks we have, like, we schedule ahead.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But we're
And
always
and
filming. So always
yeah.
filming. Always, always, always filming. So, and that means, I'm randomly going out on a Saturday night and I'll do my makeup look and I'll film all of it and I'll put it into a shared album for Charlotte to do what she likes with it later. And
Okay.
or client consultations, always filming, taking after photos,
Mm.
always filming, day in the life, I will just film, and we put it all into a shared album together, and then
Hmm.
Charlotte can look and pull what she needs to fill that criteria that we have, and making sure it rotates between those three things.
Yeah. Okay. And what about the personal borders? Because you do
Hmm.
share a lot of yourself and your family life. It's sort of
Yeah,
like a marketing dream. Here's the perfect wife and the, super dad, who is great, looked after the girls. I know he was home husband for a while.
yeah.
And like you had this on the outside looking in, this perfect scenario that a lot of people would, kill for. Three very pretty little girls, a great business, really supportive husband. Everything from the outside looking in looks good. So, what are the personal borders that you put
Yeah,
in place to sort of keep some of you, like you just said, if I'm going to do my makeup on a Saturday night, I might film it. Does
yeah.
Nate, your husband, ever walk in and go, "Oh my God, you're not doing that again? Can't we just chill out?" Do you know?
Yeah.
Like, how do you find that balance with stuff?
I think my husband's very understanding when it comes to my work extends past the salon, and he's had a front row seat to what I've built in a short amount of time. We were living
Mm,
in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with a crib at the end of my bed, like our bed,
mm,
not that long ago. So, and freelancing, and he was a stay-at-home dad. So the growth that we've had in such a short amount of time, he knows the sacrifices and the amount of effort that's gone into that. So he plays,
mm.
he plays ball. He's happy to do what he has to do to make that happen. He'll be like, "Girls, mom's
Yeah.
filming, everyone quiet." Like, or he'll
Okay.
like take the kids out, like he had a soccer game tonight, and he took all three girls with him to the soccer game tonight so I could come here to film this without me even asking him to do that. He did that. So he's
Okay.
quite understanding, but he was also the stay-at-home dad. So, I, for years, 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer, I was the sole provider for our family of five.
Mm.
So, I mean, just like any wife would be supportive for their husband working full time, there shouldn't be any difference. And as much as I am very appreciative of the sacrifices and effort that he's put in, it is also no different than any stay at home wife
Yeah,
to their husband
that's
having a big career. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I can just hear the women listening to this podcast applauding in the car.
I
Getting home and
mean,
saying to their husband, "You need to
I've
listen to this. It's about
I've
time you
had
lifted your game."
I've had my moments of frustration when it comes to,
Mm,
you know, how unfair the potential, how can I say it, like the compliments maybe he's had for doing what he does,
mm.
how it can sometimes feel a little unfair to the lack of, compliments that a woman will get to do the same role. So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point.
it has
Yeah,
been
yeah,
very confronting for us, and I think
yeah.
especially because I never got an applaud for being the one that was financially responsible for our whole family. There wasn't a lot of
Mm.
times where anyone was like, "Wow, you're such a good provider."
Yeah,
That
yeah,
no
yeah,
one said that. They all said, "Oh, you have the best husband. Everyone needs a Nate." And Nate is amazing. Don't get me wrong, Nate is amazing, and I'm
yeah,
very,
yeah,
very grateful to have him. But it is very different, I think, being the woman in that role compared to the male and hopefully that
yeah.
will change as the years go on.
Well, it is changing, and you obviously have this really tight unit, not just between you
Yeah.
and Nate, but the girls as well. It's like a really tight little family unit, which is great.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Um,
the girls have a front row seat to it as well. And, my salon's 1 minute from home. So, often the girls will come to the salon and run through and, they know where mum is when I'm working. They also love
yeah,
seeing mum get dressed up, mum going to work. They all talk about the careers that they want. So,
yeah,
as much as
good.
I'm working a lot, I feel like they're benefiting from that in multiple ways.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. One thing I want to back to is talk about the salon for a minute.
Yeah.
Is when I talk to a lot of people these days, all over the world, that are salon owners, there's always a conversation about, Gen Z, employees today, and building an employee-based business is not
Hmm.
as easy as perhaps it used to
Mm-mm.
be.
It is
So,
not.
how has your business model evolved in
Yeah.
terms of accommodating the
Yeah.
needs and expectations of a new generation in the workforce? How do you offer
Yeah.
more flexibility, etc., and
Exactly.
still
I
keep
think
the
you just
culture that you want?
yeah. I think you just hit the nail on the head when you said flexibility. I feel like there's not a world now when there's an opportunity for people to be freelancing and running their own show, you can't be running the old school salon that you used to run and expect people to stay as employees. They need to have a better working environment with more flexibility to make it worth them wanting to be part of a team. They can't be under, a dictatorship that the old salons used to be like. So there needs to be a really great work environment and other reasons for them to stay as an employee. Also, trying to find people that are of that nature that want to be employees. So
Mm,
there's loads of hairdressers out there, and loads of them want to freelance, but also loads of them don't. And I think if you hold your gut, hold your feet with only employing employees only, you can stick to that. But it is difficult when some amazing hairdressers will, land on your doorstep, but they only want to be freelancers. And you have to make the decision to say no to that, to not disturb that
mm,
employee only culture. But it
mm,
is something that I am not willing to not have at this point in time. Whether that may change later over the years, like all of my city salons do and tell me that they've had to do. I'm not there yet, and I can't see it happening anytime soon.
mm. Okay, yeah, I agree with all that. There's some people that want to be independent and um, be in control of their destiny and have the work life flexibility that they want, etc. I think they pretty quickly find out that it's not a case of you get to keep all the money. It's a case of you get to distribute the money to all the other people that you
Mhm.
have to give it to, whether
Yeah,
that's accountants or credit card fees or the range of things that any business has. When you're
yeah,
an independent, you still have most of those things, just smaller dollar amounts, but you still got to pay them all. So it's not always a case of the grass being greener for a lot of people. Um, where do you think that sort of thing is heading? It's like
yeah.
we live in this really volatile world at the moment. It's constantly evolving and changing, and in good ways and
Mhm.
not so difficult and not so good ways at
Yeah,
every level. Whether we're talking about the hairdressing industry or whatever, what do you think the hairdressing industry will look like in sort of 10 years time? Do you think it'll be more in that direction, more self-employed, or do you think the pendulum will swing back and there'll be more employee employer based businesses?
yeah.
Do you have
I
any
mean,
thoughts about that?
my personal opinion on this is that the freelance industry will continue to keep growing and dominating over it. I think there will still be a place for an employee-only salon, but it will probably be restricted to suburban areas. Sorry, but when it comes to the city, I think it's going to be very difficult to have an employee-only salon. I think that if they are employees, they're wanting other opportunities. They're wanting to grow their social media and they're wanting to be known in the industry independently from the salon. Even if they're still an employee, they want that other side. They want to be recognized for them. Maybe they don't want the business side, but they definitely want the other opportunity side of the social media. So
Mm,
I feel like people aren't going to all change. You're not going to have an introvert all of a sudden want these things. So there's still going to be those people, but I think majority of people are wanting freelance.
okay, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's pretty much everywhere. It's being driven perhaps by different things in different countries, but that is, the general shift. Last thing I wanted to ask you about was the tech side of your
Yep.
business. The business you've got today would inevitably be reliant on tech, starting even with social media that you didn't have when you first started hairdressing 21 years ago.
Yeah.
What sort of tech things have you integrated into your business today that you didn't have, or maybe wasn't even available, 5, 10 years ago?
I mean, we do everything online. Like, I think that's pretty standard now. All of our online bookings, systems like that, our software that we use for appointments, um, yeah, all of our color tracking, everything like that's online. And then all of our marketing is obviously online. So all of our social channels, everything is online, pretty much.
Hmm.
So tech
Okay,
wise, like,
cool.
I mean, we integrate things like AI with some of our strategies and marketing and business perspective. But yeah, is there kind of another area that you're referring to?
Oh no, I was just interested. I was doing an event yesterday in London, and we had three different speakers that were at it. One of them was a guy called Phil Evans, and he has a business called Salon, and he does websites and talks a lot about using Google and SEO and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff. Then we had another one who was from Vish. They were one of the
yeah,
sponsors of the event, and
we have
so there was a
Salon
lot of
Scale.
tech there. And then we had
Yeah,
Salon IQ, and Salon IQ is a point of sale system in the
yeah,
UK. I don't believe it's in Australia. And then we had Unite, hair care
yeah,
brand. So there was a lot of talk about tech, and that was sort of
yeah.
obvious that was playing a much bigger role in the industry today. And I was just
Well, I
wondering
mean,
for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously it's inevitable that the more tech advances will happen and creep into our industry. I heard
Mm.
your last podcast, I think it was your last with clicks. I found that
Yes, yes.
super interesting.
It
It's
was,
going
wasn't it? Yeah.
to be very difficult for the color companies not to jump on board with that because, from a
Mm.
business perspective, the appeal of the money that you'll save in your inventory is wild. So
Yeah.
I think there will be things that are unavoidable to jump on the movement of, and I think the faster that you evolve on these IT areas, then the faster you'll grow. You can't ignore these kind of advances or you will be left
Mm.
behind, for sure. So
Yeah.
anything that's relatable to the industry in an IT perspective, I'm super interested. But there's things that will
Mm.
become irrelevant the more tech advances. So just say clicks, might then make Vish and Salon Scale not applicable anymore. So
Mm.
there's trying to jump on and invest your time into the things that are more long-standing ITs as much as you can, because obviously IT and AI and all those things advance at such a fast rate, you know, it's hard to know what's around the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you. I was fascinated with that technology,
Mm,
which is relatively new. Well, actually, it's not relatively new. People have been doing it for years, but now there's AI integrated into it. I think it has taken that technology to a whole nother level where it will succeed when it perhaps didn't succeed as well beforehand. So I thought it was a bit of a game changer as well. And actually, that's led into something that I just thought of then, which is if you listen to last week's podcast with Clicks,
mm.
you would have heard at the end of it about an affiliation that they have with Car Goldwell. And
Well,
I know
yes,
you're very strongly
yeah,
affiliated with Goldwell. So, what
very,
I wanted to
yeah.
ask you was how important for a young salon owner building a brand like you, how important is that relationship with a brand provider to be an ambassador or whatever it is? How important has that been for you for building the business that you have?
I think it's really important. I think that there is certain growth that you can get by yourself, and there can be I think it's really important to have other elements of growth that you can have, like, and line them up. When I'm building something, I'm building it from five different ways. I'm building a personal brand, I'm building a business brand, I'm building an industry brand, I'm building a commercial brand. Like, there's all of those areas I focus on, and being able to have partnerships with global brands just creates other avenues of opportunity that you wouldn't be able to potentially get by yourself. I still think you as an individual building your own brand should be your primary focus, because I think, and I believe that you should be getting these brands to support you and create opportunities that you want. And that's the approach that I've kind of taken. Instead of me just being for the brand, I've tried to get the brand to be more for my brand. So that's kind of where I would see that relationship is super valuable. But I have like thoroughly enjoyed my industry relationship since COVID. So I have kind of stepped more into the industry since that kind of all happened. And the community and the friends and like the colleagues, I guess I now have from my industry is so valuable. And I think there's a bit of a reassurance in it where, you know, businesses come and go, your close team come and go, but to have these big industry relationships that I'll have for the next 10, 20 years, that I'll know that they've been on this journey in the industry with me, I think is a really powerful thing. And I think is a missed opportunity if you don't get yourself into these doors.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. We now need to wrap up, but that's a really good note to finish on. Kirby, where can people connect with you? I know you've got 2 Instagram accounts
Yes.
that you use. Where can people connect with you on Instagram or any other social media channel?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to connect with me personally, it's Kirby Lago Hair. So KirbyLago Hair. And then the business page is Pello by Lago. Pello like hello. Pello, Pelo by Lago, Lago. For some reason, everyone thinks there's an R in there, which is why I'm being very clear with the Lago.
Right, no, it's okay. All right, well, listen, I will put those links on our website, growmysalonbusiness.com, and in the show notes for today's podcast, wherever you're listening to it. So if you're listening to this podcast with Kirby Lago and you've enjoyed it as much as I have, do me a favour and share it with people who you know would also enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to wrap up, Kirby, thank you for being today's guest on the Grow My Salon Business podcast.
Thank you for having me.